Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to a remarkable panel of very persuasive and committed women to the service of other women. Ms. Box, when you testified earlier, I was sitting here and I started to cry because I share the same experience that you have had. I lost a child, a fetus, when I was 17 weeks. And I told my story on the House floor, in part because I sat there and listened to such false information coming from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, that it outraged me so much that I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. You have not lived through this kind of experience. And to hear you talk about Libby Rose and keep her on your chest is just very powerful because it underscores what we all go through when we lose a fetus at late term. It is never by choice. And I find it so offensive that we continue to have members here in Congress think that they can somehow take hold of our bodies and tell us what we can do. So thank you. Thank you for your presence here, for your new infant's presence here. Having the gurgling of your child was just music to all of our ears. And thank you to all of you as well. I'm going to share one story, though, that relates to Missouri. My daughter went to the University of Missouri and graduated there. She had a girlfriend who became pregnant, who then drove an hour and a half to St. Louis to be seen, and then was told that she had to wait 3 days, and so then she had to drive an hour and a half back. And then, of course, she couldn't get the abortion in 3 days because there was such a long waiting list. Now, this friend of my daughter's then finally called her mother, who lived in another state, who was not pro-choice. And her mother came and picked her up and took her to another state to get the abortion. We cannot force women to have to jump through hoops and travel long distances to get the health care that they deserve and that is legal under the law in this country. And to see what Missouri has done with their laws and how difficult they have made it is so repugnant to me and should be repugnant to every woman in this country. Now, Ms. Box, let me ask you the question that I think about a lot. When you were required to wait your 72 hours and received this counseling, what was the counseling that you received?
Well, first, I want to say that I thank you for sharing your story with me, and I am sorry for your loss. I know how painful that is. I'm not the legal expert, but we don't really have, is it counseling?
You didn't recognize it as counseling.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, yeah, you're right. I didn't understand that was considered counseling.
What was it?
It's a booklet that has, so the consent process, I guess, is that, I apologize. So they had to go over this information, and they provided me with a booklet that is written by the state that has medically inaccurate information in an attempt to help me make an informed decision, which just doesn't make sense to me. But what I will say is that how it works in Missouri currently is that you have to consent with the provider who will perform the abortion. And so my consent and my counseling, the book, like I said earlier, I call a book of shame. But my conversation with the provider, with the doctor who works at Planned Parenthood, was the most compassionate care I have ever received. She took something that was the worst experience of my husband in my life and showed us love and no judgment and counseled us in all of the options available to us and gave us medically accurate, science-based information so that we could make a decision as parents that was informed and full of love.
Thank you. Thank you again, all of you, and I yield back.
Thank you.